Johnversations Podcast. This is episode number 36. As always, I'm your host, John Connor, and our guest today is an author and writer. She has been featured on the Today Show. Love to Know. She writes for All Horror and more. Again, her book, The Realist Bride, Everything You Really Need to Know About Planning a Wedding, is available on Amazon. She is a Johnversations All-Star returning champ. Ladies and gentlemen, please, if you're listening in your car, if you're listening, on your computer, earbuds, or watching on YouTube, make a lot of noise for Miss Jessica Gomez. Jessica, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. My favorite time of the year.
I know, mine too, and that's really why I wanted to have you on. Is you're somebody, I send you stuff all the time. I'm like, hey, did you see this mask? You see this Friday the 13th like face covering? It's super cool. I thought you'd like it. Like, you're somebody that gets amped about Halloween the same way that I do, and then with your love of horror movies, like we talked last time, and you do your article every month, and I couldn't think of anybody better that I like to have on and just kind of talk about all the cool things that Halloween has to bring. So again, thank you so much for being here, and super appreciate it.
Yes, I'm excited.
Before we jump in, I know last time you and I talked, we were both very on edge about the COVID situation.
Yes.
It was, this is episode 36. You were on for episode 15. And I mean, that's weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks ago.
Yeah.
And, I just wanted to check in with you before we kind of jumped into all the spooky stuff, but like, how have you been doing better? How's everything been going for you?
Yeah, I'm doing better. I don't really sleep that well, which I'm sure is probably at least partially because of what's going on. But I think when we chatted last time, we were like right in the middle of like our 3-month quarantine in Michigan. And at that point, I hadn't seen even my family, and people still weren't taking it seriously, which is still the case. And it was a harder time then for me than it is now, because now we have more information, because before it was like, we didn't know how it spread. Can you get it from someone making your food? I don't know. Like everything was just kind of like up in the air, and you didn't know how you could get it. We just knew it was very contagious. So now that I have more information that it's, being outside is fine. And if you're, just picking up a carry out, as long as you're wearing a mask, you're going to be fine. Like, now that I have more freedom to do something once in a while, like I was only getting my groceries pick up, and then it was like taking like a week for that to even get shipped or let me pick it up. So now if I want to like go to the store really quick, I can. So it's more normal now than it was. I think this is probably how it's going to be for a while. I mean, there's no like clear end in sight. So
they're saying we're probably going to have to be wearing masks like well into like 2022. And so it's just kind of like a new. And
I don't care. I don't even care. Like, everyone's such a fucking baby about it. Like,
right.
In the winter, why wouldn't you want to wear a mask? Like, I was outside and I didn't have to wear a mask, but I just had it on anyway because it was keeping my face warm because it was cold outside. Like, it's really not that big of a deal. My 3-year-old can do it. He wears it the correct way and doesn't have his nose like sticking out like other people do. He wears it right. If it's like slipping, he pulls it back up. And he has no complaints about it. So if a 3-year-old can do it, you can do it.
Yeah, I think I'm waiting for like the company that makes Ugg boots to get in the game, and they'll be like the fleece lined face mask.
I'm sure somebody's going to come up with it. Yeah, to make it, like they already have made them fashionable. So I'm sure they're going to make them good for wintertime. But
the under the nose thing, because like, it just pisses me off so bad, because like I would go to the grocery store and it would you'd be able to tell it is people that are, we had a mask mandate here for a couple of months, and so people would go, all right, if I got to wear this mask, so they'd like put it on their chin or like put it like right here, so it was under it was almost like a spiteful thing. Like, if I got to wear it, I'm it's on my fucking face. You know what I mean? Like, it just I don't know.
I would tell people to pull up their mask before, and now it's like so many people wear it incorrectly that it's like, oh my God, it's not even worth it.
Well, I told Kara if I had the money, I would like to take like 10 grand out of the bank and like $20 bills and then just go, and every person that I sasaw wearing a mask correctly in the grocery store, be like, here's $20. Thanks for wearing a mask.
I know, it's such a problem now that I like will identify, oh, someone's wearing their mask correctly. Like, oh my God, that's awesome. But yeah.
Yeah,
usually
I'm glad.
The people that like, usually most of the time people who are at work are wearing them correctly. But yeah, the patrons, it's like, come on. It's so disrespectful to the people who have to work in the public and are putting themselves at risk every day. Like, it's
for sure.
just the simplest thing to do.
Yeah. And I mean, I felt a lot better now knowing that you can't get it from like touching surfaces. That's made me feel, because like every time I go to the grocery store and like have to use the pin pad to put in like my ATM code or whatever, I'd be like, my hand, like, don't touch anything. I was using
I was like
wipes.
obsessive. Like, I would get gas. I put my mask on to just like pump my gas, and because I didn't know, you got to wait for the information. So now, I always like sanitize after I touch something that's like in public, because you don't want to touch it or touch your face or whatever.
Right.
But
Yeah, I started therapy last week finally, because I was just like, I was just like, I can't, man. I've got like so much anxiety. And I think like, especially for men, I mean, talking about like scary and spooky stuff, I think like therapy has a little bit of for a lot of guys has a little bit of a stigma to it.
Mm-hmm.
So it like, I found myself being like, there's nothing wrong with me. I can work it out. I can figure it out on my own. And eventually I was just like, I need to talk to somebody. I need to talk to somebody who doesn't have like a stake in the game. You know what I mean? Who's not
right.
Like,
someone impartial who's just going to give you tools to help you.
Yeah. And it's really helped. It's kind of, helped me identify like some of the stuff that I've where the underlying fear is. So like, I've talked about this before on the show, but like, I just haven't always had the greatest relationship with my dad. And so I always told myself like, I'm going to do better. Mm-hmm. And I started going to therapy and talking. I was like, a big fear of mine is the fact that like, I'm afraid of getting this and dying and then not having the chance to do better for my kid, like leave my kid, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's, I don't know. It's a really weird time. And I just was like, I don't know what else to do except like, it was one of those things where like, if it didn't work, there was no harm, no foul. And if it did work, maybe I'd feel better. Right. And it's been a good couple of weeks, so I'll take the win. Yeah.
Sometimes it just helps to just offload on somebody that, like you said, has no stake in the game. So you're not going to feel bad about like bringing somebody down or like putting a burden on anyone. Because I know even though we shouldn't feel that way, sometimes we do. So that's great that you're going. I think that's really wonderful. I think that probably most people could benefit from therapy.
Yeah. And I think for me too, really what it was is like and maybe other people that are listening can like feel this or are having the same situation or something similar. But for me, it was like there was so much stress about other things that it kind of put me on like a hair trigger for little things that didn't matter. Like, where are we going to eat dinner tonight? Or, it'd be, it would
just
affect,
like on edge.
Yeah. And it would affect communication. And then, nobody's communicating well. Cause everyone is, at least here, like if we're not at work, we're not really doing much anything else. You know what I mean? So it's like everyone's stressed and like the littlest thing so can kind of, set off a communication bomb, that's much bigger than you expected. Mm-hmm. So it's been nice to kind of like identify why my brain was working like that and then like be able to catch it in the moment. So
right.
I don't know if someone's listening and you're thinking about it, go do it. It's not really that expensive. And if you've got insurance or you work somewhere that has like an employee assistance program, it's worth checking out. But
yeah. And I know there's a lot of different options now. Like if you don't want to go in person, there's like people who will Zoom or Skype with you or do it on your phone. Or whatever,
I use Live Health Online. They don't sponsor the show. So I'm just putting it out there, but you can create an account. And then I think even if you don't have insurance or if you have like poor insurance that doesn't cover it, I think like the max cost for one of the online visits is like $80. So, if you're not spending money on other things right now, like going to the movies or anything like that, like, it's not as expensive as I guess I thought it would be because, you think, without insurance, going to the doctor is phenomenal. So,
Yeah.
what would that be? But it's surprisingly reasonable. So Live Health Online is something you could check out if you're listening. Again, they don't sponsor the show, maybe someday, but
Yeah.
but it's cool. They have got like their own Zoom platform, and you just like you select your webcam, and I actually sit here when I'm doing it. So it's like a little private podcast to just be like, let me talk about all the the reasons my head is messed up. So
you're not messed up. I'm sure most people have like struggles. Like we were talking about before, I struggle with anxiety too, and I get seasonal depression. So like I'm really not looking forward to this winter because I'm not gonna be able to see most people. I'm gonna not be able to go and do indoor activities. So I'm just gonna be like sitting around like wallowing in my own feelings. So.
Yeah, and for people with seasonal depression too, like that worries me, like with what is going to be coming down the pipeline. You know what I mean? Because here in Tennessee, like things are not getting better.
No,
like
I know.
And I know, Michigan, outside of the governor being a like kidnapping target, and
God.
that was crazy. When I read that was crazy. But it's like, I know Michigan's cases are going back up too. So it's like people who have to deal with being down in the winter, and then on top of this, it's just I'm keeping you in my thoughts and hoping that you pull through okay. And it's just I'll
be keeping more busy than others because I have a toddler, so he doesn't. It
really
rest,
helps.
So.
It really helps.
Yeah.
And I'm like you, where I haven't been sleeping well at night. So when I have the kid, if the kid goes down for a nap, that's when I'm like, okay, let me like catch up enough to function. And then
that's when I write.
Okay.
So yeah, maybe once a week I'll think about like taking a nap, and then I'll just like lay there and not fall asleep, and I'll just be like, I feel better. I probably don't, but
that's how my wife
I took like an hour rest. That's good.
That's how my wife is. She lays down and she's like, I really want to take a nap, but I'm thinking about like the 7 things that I have to do. And so like, unless she has absolutely nothing like get done, she just lays there, and then I fall asleep and she gets up, and I wake up and like the house is clean, and oh wow, a lot happens when I fall asleep around here. Well, one thing I was kind of, speaking about not sleeping, one thing that I've been utilizing the time to really kind of throw myself into Halloween movies, like scary movies. And I've really been into this year documentaries about horror films. I don't know if there's like any that you're into, but I'm super excited to kind of talk about what we've been watching and suggestions. This is going to come out Wednesday, the Wednesday before Halloween. So people have like be able to listen, and then hopefully get on like VOD and find something that they want to check out. But I know you recently wrote an article for All Horror that was essentially 31 movies for the Halloween season.
Yes.
And it was very good. I read the article. I loved it. You ended with my all-time favorite, which we'll get to. And I love like all iterations of it too. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But I wanted to ask, for someone who is listening, let's say they're at home, they're hanging up the Halloween decorations, they're making their little candy chute to drop the candy from the door down the like kind of starting out, like what is something that you feel like somebody should be watching this year?
Well, if you are into horror movies and you're going to be watching like a few, I would highly recommend at least a short stint of paying the $6 a month or whatever it is for Shudder, because it's all horror content. And that doesn't mean that every horror movie is on there, because there's a lot that aren't, but they have original content, and the original content that's been coming out has been really, really high quality. So I would say my personal favorite on there is Haunt. I don't know if you've seen that one, but it's actually a Halloween themed movie. And there's really not that many of those out there. Like, you think of Halloween, you think of horror, they are synonymous with each other, but there's really not a ton of horror movies when you think about all of the movies that are out there that are based around Halloween. So every time I see one that has the holiday involved, I want to watch it. So I watched it. It came out last year and I saw it when it first came out, and it is good. It's scary. It's different. And it's based in a haunted house. And the haunted house is like a real, the people who are running it are sinister. So that one I would definitely recommend. And then I just watched Spiral on there too, and that's like an LGBTQ horror movie. And that one is really good, like very trippy. You never really like totally know what's going on until the end. Very well acted, very good. And then not on Shudder, but one that I saw this year, it came out this year, and it was like a huge success, is The Wretched. It's on Hulu. And that one was probably my favorite one that I saw this year. I interviewed the directors of that movie. They're originally from Michigan, but they live in California now. And they were awesome, like super passionate about filmmaking and like horror, like mega fans. Like this is the beginning for them. So they had like a huge opening for their movie because it was supposed to be released in theaters, and then COVID happened. And then their movie is through IFC Midnight, and IFC was like, let's put it in a drive-in theater. And then it kind of snowballed from there. And it was the #1 movie in America for, I think, 6 weeks straight.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. So, and they were telling me like that they have had studios tell them like, hey, can you just make a movie where there's like a girl in a house and like someone's like stalking her? And they were like, no.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't want to make that movie. I've seen that a million times. So, but I appreciated that, you know, they had an offer for a movie and they were like, no, I want to make something different and I want to, you know, make what I want to make. And so, yeah, that was probably my favorite of the year. But there's been a bunch of good movies this year, which was impressive because a lot of movies got moved. So like Antlers, we talked about that last time. That was like what I was most looking forward to. That was supposed to come out in April. That's pushed till next year, early next year. So it may get pushed again. The Candyman Reboot was supposed to come out.
Which is such a bummer.
I know.
Such a bummer.
Jordan Peele wanted to push that till next year. And so that's going to come out sometime next year. Halloween.
Yeah, Halloween Kills broke my heart. Broke my heart. I was like, why? Because Jamie Lee Curtis was the one who made the announcement. She announced it on like Instagram or Twitter or something, was like, we're going to wait till next year. And I was like, why? Why did you do that? I was so excited.
I mean, I understand because they want people to have the cinematic experience. Like some movies were supposed to come out in the theater and they just released it digitally. And that's totally understandable. But I think that for certain films, it makes more sense to just wait. So like, I know that's Candyman, like all the people who are involved in that were like, we don't want to release this digitally. We're just going to move it. So, yeah, we'll see. They said that regardless of the situation next year, Halloween Kills is coming out next October, no matter what. So we'll see.
I was talking to a friend of mine and we're both, shout out to Levi Bratton. He's the guy who cuts my hair, but every time we go, we like talk about movies and he's one of those guys who never got rid of his toys as a kid. So he has all his like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles toys. And and they're all worth like just ridiculous amounts of money now. So
I'm
he's
sure,
like,
yeah,
we always talk like the nerd stuff, like, what you get any toys? What movie are you watching? But you know, we were talking about that, like there's something about being in the theater for certain films, because like when you're home, you know, sometimes I think when you're watching, if you're really into it, being home adds an extra level of creepiness. Mm-hmm. But you always have that ability to be like, I'm going to pause this, or like I'm going to get up and let me turn on the kitchen light and like get some popcorn or something. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Where like when you're in the movie theater, you're there for the ride. There's no like, oh, let me pause this, or I got to run to the bathroom. It's like,
it's more of an experience.
Yeah, you're both. And then I think my favorite thing about it, like, I think I was telling you this last episode, but like, I can't go to horror films with my mother-in-law because she physically assaults me. If I sit next to her, she's like, ah, and just, hits you it violently. So it's like, now she does that if we're watching something at home too. She's just, she's just abusive. But, yeah, it's just weird. And then the other thing, and I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, but I'm like, it's great that you're holding out for movie theaters, but like the way things are going, are theaters even going to be a thing next year?
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, just
going to devastate me when they inevitably close, or there's a couple every state or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's like now AMC is doing something where like you can rent a movie theater for like $90.
Oh yeah, I already looked into it.
It's just like,
yeah.
I think the other thing that's really bummed me out too is like they, when COVID happened, the movie theater here was staying open. They were doing a lot of what other movie theaters were doing. Were like Jaws is one of my all-time favorite. I consider it a horror film. Yes. A lot of people are like, thriller, suspense, whatever. I'm like, that's a straight up slasher with a fin. Like
yeah, I see that. Like, there's like film Twitter, and it's so annoying because everyone they have to get their opinion out, and then there's always infighting. It's stupid, but yeah, I see that all the time. Like, Jaws is not a horror film. And it's like, okay, what do you consider a horror film then? Like, I see that about Silence of the Lambs. It's like, he literally eats people. Like, yeah. What do you need for this to be what are you talking about? Buffalo Bill is not a horror character to you? What?
That whole movie could have been sunshine and rainbows, and as soon as Buffalo Bill did the tuck and was like, would you fuck me? I'm like, this is the scariest movie I've ever seen in my life.
I mean, yeah.
It's so funny though, because then you see him on Monk. He's like the police chief on that. He was the police chief on that like Monk TV show or something. Oh,
really?
And he's just like a completely like, hey, what's up? What's going on? But sometimes his voice, his voice like dips into it. You're like, oh my God. Yeah, no, like I'm with you though. I'm like, yeah, that's like definitely that's definitely a horror, like a crazy horror film. And I think Hannibal Lecter was only on screen for something like 13 to 20 minutes in the movie. Like he's not, he's like haunts people's nightmares. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
But it's so crazy because they were playing that in the movie theater, playing Jaws. And I've never got to see Jaws in the movie theater. I was like, that would be so, if people weren't just dropping dead right now, like I'd be like, I'm on board to see this movie. But
I know I felt that way, which I know this is your favorite horror movie too, but John Carpenter's Halloween. The first time I saw that a few years ago in the theater, that was an experience, like it's something that you're like, wow, I didn't get the opportunity. My mom saw it in the theater, but like, obviously I was not born yet. I think she was like 11 or something, or 14, something like that. And it like haunted her nightmares. And I think part of it was because she went and saw it in the theater. So it was really cool to see it, the way it was meant to be screened.
Yeah, I felt we went to Ann Arbor. They used to do like midnight show. I don't know if they still do it, but they would do like the Goonies. And like I loved the Goonies when I was a kid, but again, I think that movie came out like 2 years before I was born. So I never got that, but my dad saw it and loved it. So it was cool to be able to go and like sit and see that in that setting. There's just something about it. And like, being with everyone in the room and like having that shared experience, that's my favorite thing. Cause like, something will happen on screen and you hear some people laugh because they're so like giddy and excited for like that, Halloween, for that first Michael Myers kill back.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Or like, everyone's screaming or, don't do it. It's like I don't know. I'm not a religious person, but I can like it almost in a way reminds me of church. It's like that you're congregating together to have like this like
community. Yeah.
Yeah. And it pulls at like if a horror movie's done well, it pulls at like real emotion. You know what I mean? If it's not just like cheap jump scares and stuff like that. So I've been watching, I don't know if you're a fan, but Eli Roth has a documentary series called History of Horror. that's on Shudder?
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of it, but I haven't been like on the up and up on all of it.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the first season came out, I want to say it came out last year, maybe the year before. I want to say it was last year, but they did like slasher, like the history of slashers and aliens, and they had they interview Robert Englund and they interview Kane Hodder, who's playing Jason, and they just did season 2 just started. They've done like Hell Houses, like haunted house films. And then the most recent episode was Monsters, and they go through the history of like monster films, starting with like the old like your Dracula and Wolfman and all these old like monster pictures, to like all the way up to like the new King Kong and Alien and all this stuff. And it's really, one thing that stuck out to me that like I never really put together. They were talking about King Kong, for example, and they were basically saying that the original was like this metaphor for the black man's struggle in America at that time. Like like he's looked at as this beast, and they're after your white women, and like they're gonna ruin your city. And
I know you've seen it. Horror Noir was talking about that too.
Yeah.
Which is the history of black horror, which I think that came out this year. Was that this year? I think it came out in February.
Yeah, but this year feels like it has not ended. Like it never starts and it never ends.
This year went by in 3 weeks and 3 years. Like it's the weirdest time. But yeah, I believe that came out this year. If it wasn't this year, it was last year. But yeah, they were talking about the King Kong and what all the symbolism was and all that.
Yeah, it's crazy because again, I think people go to horror films and they're like, oh, I'm just going to be scared. But like, what like I said, like if they're done correctly, there's so much. I guess there's so much that can be said on a deeper level that like you don't like you just don't experience. Like I think Halloween, for example, is a great like a great reference point for this. Like we've got the final girl, and everyone's like, the final girl, she's the one that doesn't have sex, she's the one that doesn't have doesn't do drugs, this and that, and it essentially stemmed from the original Halloween. But John Carpenter has said like, hey, I wasn't trying to make this like a final girl. She wasn't supposed to be. The only way that she was different was that she was a little bit smarter and a little bit more like introverted. It didn't. It wasn't that she was like some vision of purity. It was just if you, I don't know. It's just he's projecting them as characters, and in each character it kind of says something to almost like how they get, like what their priorities are and how they get picked off. Like Laurie Strode is like, no, but I'm babysitting. Like that's what I'm doing. If you want to bring the other kid here, I'll watch them. You go do. She's the responsible one, and then everyone else kind of gets picked off because of their irresponsibility.
Yeah, she doesn't want to face off with Michael Myers, but she knows she needs to protect the kids.
Right.
So that's like her main priority. Is she's like, you guys stay together, go away, like save yourself, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, I think they did a really good job at kind of establishing her character in that, especially like when you think about like what that movie was made, like the budget of that film, and like I really I was watching again. That's one that I watched a documentary on the making of, and like there's that famous scene where she's leaning up against the door, and then you just see him start to fade in, and it was just a little lamp on a little dimmer knob, and somebody was down at his feet just spinning the knob, and then
isn't that amazing? Like the way that they did things, and you would never know. Yeah, because it was just so cinematically like perfect.
Yeah, and I mean, he using that. Like the opening shot of the film where he's little Michael Myers, and he's watching, going around the house, and it's all that one continuous shot until he puts on the mat. Like just nobody was doing anything like that. And then again, I think it's just crazy because like that's the film that here's everything original. Here's the message that I'm trying to put out. Like this is, this is my vision. And then especially through the 80s to see that kind of be like, okay, well, we're going to take this trope, and this trope, and then we're going to make this film.
They just saw that it was
times.
like a smash success, and then they're like, okay, do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's so many, and granted, some of them do a little bit better. Like I know you're a Slumber Party Massacre fan, right?
I mean, I like it. It's, I just think it's funny, but they copy off like completely off of Halloween.
Yeah, I feel the same way about My Bloody Valentine, where it's very much the same kind of, it's, slasher just running around, picking people off, but like it was done. It was I think it was clever to actually they shot in like an actual mine. Yeah. And some of the kills were really, really creative. But then again, you look at it, it's like, oh yeah, it's just some dude in a mask running around. So I wanted to ask you this because I mean, you kind of live and I don't want to say live and breathe, but I know that, you work for a horror magazine, or a horror website, like you are writing articles, you're watching movies. And we may have touched on this a little bit in the last episode, but like to you, what do you think it is that really pulls people into this genre? And especially because like, when you say like the horror genre, the best way I've heard it explained is someone's like, it's like horror is the tree trunk, but then you've got like your Saws are one branch, and then like your Silence of the Lambs is another branch. And there's so many different subgenres in the category. But it seems like it does such a great job of really pulling people, and people that are into it are like really into it. So, for you or even speaking about it in general, what do you think it is that pulls people in?
I think that for people who are like avid watchers of horror movies, I think that a lot of those people are kind of like me, where they're emotion driven. And so I think part of it is that you like the highs and lows, and you like to be scared, and you like that, you're trying to figure something out, and you're hoping that who you're rooting for survives. And I think that some people also, there's like some really heavy things in a lot of horror movies that are sometimes overtly displayed and sometimes covertly. And I think that it can be really therapeutic for people. And if they can see their own issues, just like any movie, really, like if you can see yourself in a character, or you can see a situation and how it applies to you, then that you're going to identify with that. So I think that, people who will watch horror movies at like Halloween time and that's it, I think they have a skewed vision of what horror is like. I think they do think that everything is like a slasher and everything follows certain tropes, and that's just like what a horror movie is. But like, I mean, just as you said, are Saw and Silence of the Lambs anything alike? No, they're completely different. There's a million different directions you can go in horror. Like I've had people say to me like, oh, it's not really a horror movie. There's no like, ghosts or anything in it. And I'm like, that's just a paranormal horror movie. That's not all horror. Like it's there. It contains multitudes. So, look at a movie like Hereditary it's a horror movie, but the horror of it is really like the grief. Right. And there are, supernatural elements to it, but really the most like intense and like what's hard to watch is like this family that's like deteriorating after a tragedy. So I think that, there's always like a tragedy, and then there's like how people deal with it. So, and that's something that affects everybody. Everyone has something at some point that is like tragic for them. Like who can't relate to that? So I think that, obviously it speaks to everyone differently, and just how we were talking about in the last episode, different horror movies appeal to different people. I like supernatural movies. I like slashers. I don't like torture movies. I like movies like Hereditary. I like slow burns where you're not sure where it's going and you just like to be creeped out. Some people want to be like entertained right away. Like it just completely depends on what you like, but there's something for you.
Yeah, I agree. Like I think another thing that's kind of stuck out to me too is that, I think a lot of people who may be outside of the community tend to think that like horror is almost like a male driven fan base. But then,
yeah, which isn't true.
Yeah, because then I mean, like I think, especially with the slasher films and The Final Girl, like I think it was a good outlet for a lot of women. And I'm not speaking for women because obviously I'm not one. But yeah, like I said, I've been watching a lot of documentaries and there's been interviews with female fans, and they've said like, look, like this is giving us something to like root for. It's the it's the genre where like one of the few genres where like a strong female character gets to be the lead of the movie and not like like girlfriend or like
right, serves a purpose
too.
rather than like arm candy or being a bitch or whatever. Like you learn about who they are as a person. They're usually very smart because they outsmart obviously the monster or the killer or whatever, and they're a survivor, so they're to be admired. So yeah, it's definitely a positive thing for women. Like there are some exploitation films that probably are not like exactly feminist, but yeah, like the notion of the final girl. I know some female actors don't like being called final girl. It's just a personal thing, I guess.
A girl or like a woman.
Oh yeah, I guess. I mean, I know that like Heather Langenkamp like really doesn't like that, but to me, I am just like, cool.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's just like, I think one thing, and I think that maybe that's, we're talking about Candyman, but I think that's, another one of those films where like, if you can see yourself in it, and then, cause even with Candyman, it's set up as if, he's like this horrible monster. And like, granted, he's murdering people the whole movie.
Yeah.
But like, in the original film, he's murdering people the whole movie because he was in love with a white woman and they cut his hand off and,
yeah, I was totally on the side of Candyman.
Yeah. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do with the reboot. But like, I'm again, I can only speak to what I think the experience would be, but like, I'm sure to a lot of people that were going to horror films that are used to seeing, all these like white teenagers running around. It's like, oh, like, okay, somebody that I can get behind, or somebody that like, this is a character that's for me, or
right.
So it's, there's not like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the times horror can do what like a movie like Green Book tries to do, but I
didn't see Green Book, but yeah.
Like they can take out, I don't know, like they can get rid of the white savior part and just be like, hey, here's a story for you. And especially now with like all the streaming services and like content creators and like how easy it is just to make them, like, people are making movies on their phones now that are going to film festivals, and it's I don't know, it's just really, really interesting to kind of to see how it's grown, and then like even how it's changed. Because like when we were kids, I feel like when we were kids, like for the most part, I remember going to see Freddy Krueger when I was like at a Blockbuster Video. There was a guy who was dressed as Freddy with the glove and like that a boiler, and my dad took me to get my picture taken with him. I was like 6. So like it's just crazy just to see from like when we're kids how it's kind of grown. Like you've got your Screams and it gets meta, and like things kind of shift. Is there anybody out there working right now? And I think the last time we talked, we were talking about Antlers because you were really excited for that. But like, is there any filmmaker out there or anything that kind of like sticks out to you as far as something that represents like something new that might be coming?
Definitely Drew and Brett Pierce that did The Wretched. I feel like they're the movie that they're trying to make right now is a werewolf movie, and they said that they love the werewolf movies that exist, but they wanted to do something a little bit different, and they told me a little bit about their idea. And so I'm excited to see what's to come from them. I just watched Scare Package, which is also...
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I just reviewed it. I'm not sure if it's live on this. By the time this comes out, the review should be live on allhorror.com. But it was a horror comedy, and it is really funny. Like, it's definitely for horror fans. Like, I think if the average Joe was watching it, they'd be like, I don't get it. Like, whatever. But
right.
For a horror fan, it was really funny. And there's really not that many horror comedies that I really, really like, and I thought this one was really good. So I think it's Aaron B. Kuntz, he had 2 movies come out this year. He had that one, and then he had The Pale Door come out, and I haven't watched that yet, but I'm really excited to watch it. Pat Healy is in it, and I really like him. Have you ever seen The Innkeepers?
No.
Okay.
His name sounds really familiar, though.
Okay. He's in a bunch of stuff. He's in Cheap Thrills, but if you haven't seen The Innkeepers, you should. That's a good one. Have you ever seen The House of the Devil?
No, but that's on your list, though, isn't it?
Yes. I think they're both on the list.
Okay.
They're both Ty West films. And it bums me out that he hasn't really been doing as much with horror movies lately, because I really, really love those 2 movies. But anyway, The Pale Door, that's like basically next on my list to watch. It's a witch Western.
Oh, cool.
So that sounds, very intriguing and different. So I like people who like take a risk and do something that's, not really been done before. So, yeah. And then obviously Ari Aster, who did Midsommar and Hereditary, I'm really interested to see what he's going to do next. I know he was talking last year about how he likes horror because he feels that that's the genre that allows him the most creative freedom. And so that's what I like to hear, because I want to see what everybody comes up with. Everybody has such cool ideas, and it's awesome when they get the opportunity to bring it to us and we get to see something totally fresh. And it's like, you think that you've seen everything and then you haven't. So
yeah, and I think that's one of the things that like people don't really give the horror genre credit for, but like especially nowadays where it's, and don't get me wrong, like I like the Marvel movies and stuff like that. Like they're fun to watch as far as like a popcorn experience, but like, how many times are you going to see the same movie kind of remade, or like let's retell the story? And granted, horror does the same with like your Halloweens, or the It remake recently. Like there's more than a fair share of remakes, but I feel like horror for the most part has the most I guess churns out the most kind of original ideas. Or there's, again, I think it's kind of just being, with all the branches of the tree, there's just so much room for so many ideas where it's, there's going to be a fan base for something.
And I think people kind of forget, like, yeah, we all know who Freddy Krueger is. We all know who Jason is, Michael Myers, Leatherface. And we kind of think, oh, it's been done to death. But those were original characters that have now become iconic, that everybody knows who they are. So that there's something to be said for that they have spawned entire franchises based on all of these different characters. So you might think, oh, something's been done a million times. And that is true. And I do think like The Craft was just remade, and I'm not going to watch it. And it's very upsetting.
Is it because the original just holds such like a special place in your heart? I
love the original, and I don't think it's time to remake it yet. I think like in 10 more years, I probably would have been okay with it. But yeah, because it's not that old, man. I think part of it is like, I always think of the 90s as being a lot closer than it really was.
Well, that was like our time. You know what I mean? Like that was like
I love the 90s. Like I love everything about the 90s. Like nearly all of my favorites of music and movies are from the 90s. So it's when someone's like messing with or they like say they hate the 90s or something, I'm like, I really take that personally.
Well, and it's funny because, you were mentioning horror comedy, and I kind of feel the same way. I think it must have been like 2013 or 2014 because my wife and I had just started seeing each other, and she braved we talked about it last time. She's not a horror fan, but we went to the Evil Dead remake, and the Evil Dead to me, is like, or when you're talking about like the witch Western, like there's Army of Darkness, which is just, it's Evil Dead, but it's in medieval times, and you know what I mean? It's like a period piece where he's dropping, but like that was one of those movies that I found with shout out to Nate Booz and Matt Kapler.
I remember them.
Yeah. We went to the video store. Like my mom dropped me off. We were staying at Nate's house, and we went to the video store back when that was a thing, and we're going through and we're looking for something that looks scary, and we saw the cover to Evil Dead, and we're like, okay, let's take and we were in like 7th grade. Like granted, it was years and years after the movie came out, but we had never seen it. We brought it home, and I remember popping it in and watching it, and like 30 minutes into it, we all were just looking at each other like, what the fuck are we watching? Like, this is the scariest thing. Like I think
God, that's so
all
funny.
of us like pooped our pants. We were just like, this is so scary. But then they remade it, and it like wasn't bad, but I was like, it wasn't like good either. You know what I mean? I was just
because it holds such a like special place in your heart that it's like this. No, you just don't mess with it.
Well, and they twist the story at the end, and like,
oh, okay.
I think one of my favorite things about the Evil Dead, and especially as I've gotten older, is, Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell they're from Royal Oak. They're just Michigan guys, and they came down to Tennessee, where I live now, and they wanted to make this horror movie, and like they didn't have any equipment, so like I'm a nerd and I was watching a documentary, but they took a board and mounted a camera, and that was like their running shot, or like their tracking shot, or they needed to lift a lady up, but they didn't have like cable, so they just built a seesaw, and we're like, okay, lift her up, and like just. It's
so funny, like how imaginative these filmmakers are, and they work so hard, and they're like, no, I have a vision, and we're just going to make it work. Like they figure it out. And Drew and Brett Pierce, their dad worked on Evil Dead.
What?
Yeah. And he worked a little bit on the second one too, but they were saying that they knew, like they grew up with that, and so that's kind of been their inspiration as indie filmmakers, because that was like through and through an indie film. He said they would get in trouble all the time because they were always over budget. Like it was just always some kind of like chicken with their head cut off, like some kind of an issue going on, but they figured it out. And I mean, it definitely is viewed as like an iconic movie now.
Yeah, it was the highest grossing horror film of all time when it came out. It beat like Halloween. It beat like everything at the time. And the crazy thing too is like, because you mentioned like they were going over budget. The thing that I thought was the funniest about it was when they got down to Tennessee, the cabin that they were supposed to use, somebody else was using it and they couldn't use it. But they're like, we got another one. You can use this one. And it was in a valley where all these cows grazed, and the cows had essentially just barged through the door. And so when they get there, there's like a foot of cow manure all on the, so before they could start filming or anything, they had to like the cast, the crew, like, you're
nightmare.
Like, can you imagine being like, yeah, I just got hired onto this movie. Sorry, my camera might've dropped for a second. I just got hired onto this movie, and now, now I've got to go and shovel cow shit so that we can rebuild this thing and dig a bunch of it was supposed to take place in a basement, and they had to dig a pit because the place had no basement. So it was just like, just thinking about like the love for the project that you're doing.
Yeah,
to be like, yeah, I'm going to shovel
it. Keep at it.
Yeah. Hold on, I'm going to. Yeah, it's just it's crazy to think about, just like these kids wanted to make movies so bad that they were just like, yeah, let's, and I guess they got investors from like dentists and doctors. Like there was no studio. They just made like a little short Super 8 film. We're like, we want to do this. Will you give us money? So,
Hey, they made it happen.
And the Evil Dead 2 came out and like did just as well. And it's basically the same movie. It's like, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's like,
I think I saw it many, many years ago.
Yeah. It's like, it's just, he wakes up the next morning and new people show up. And then it's let's start all over again. It's the same movie. He just cuts his hand off. I don't know. It's crazy. I wanted to ask you too, like, is there, well, let's just jump in because, your number one on your list was John Carpenter's Halloween. So, I love that movie. What is it about that film for you that kind of resonates? Or because, I think a lot of people would be like, like, especially younger kids now would be like, that there's no gore in it. It's not, it's a, when you talk about like a slow burn compared to stuff that comes out now, like it's definitely a slower paced film, so like, what is it about that film that kind of captivates you all these years later?
Well, I saw that movie when I was 6 or 7, and my mom put it on in like her little TV in her room and turned all the lights off, gave me like a rundown of what the movie was about, and let me watch it from beginning to end. And I think it had to have been the TV version though when I first saw it, because I don't think we ever owned that movie on VHS. So it wasn't like there was no nudity, like where PJ Souls is like nude. It kind of like cut her off before you could see anything. And then they still showed the kills and everything, but I think it was just like slightly less graphic. But, and I don't remember being like scared shitless or anything. Like I thought it was scary, but I wasn't like, oh my God, I can't sleep tonight or anything like that. But I just really was intrigued. I thought that this like guy that you knew nothing about and you had no idea like what his true motivations were, and he could live in any town. Haddonfield was a fictional town in Illinois that literally looks like every nice neighborhood that there is.
It's very Michigan.
Yes. Like, it could have been in Illinois. It could have been in Michigan. It could have been in Pennsylvania. It could have been really anywhere. So, for me, a lot of it is the music, because John Carpenter also did the music, and it was like one of the first films that ever used synth, and he used it so effectively in every scene. And it's like, it's a cut. It makes it a cut above, just like in Jaws. Like the music is what makes Jaws so scary.
Yeah, it's like 2 notes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that, music has a lot to do with how you view a movie. Like I just watched Eloise, which I reviewed, and I did not give it a good review because
I didn't watch it because I saw the review.
Oh my God, it was so bad. I really wanted to love it. In Michigan, for those of you who don't know, there is a psychiatric hospital that has been closed for many years called Eloise. And it used to be like 80 acres or something like that. And it was a bunch of different buildings. And there was all kinds of different like people who were seen there. There was like people who had TB that were there. But there was also, I don't know if there's proof of it, but supposedly they would perform lobotomies there. And it's been closed for so many years, and it's like a derelict area. there was like a couple more buildings and then somebody set it on fire. Like, it's just a disaster over there.
Yeah.
So I have been in the building, and I was really excited to watch Eloise because they filmed about Eloise inside of the actual hospital. So I'm like, how cool that you get to do that, because that's not normally the case. It's normally like a set. So it was just really, really bad. And the reason I bring it up is because the music was just constant.
Mm-hmm.
It did not stop. And if you don't know how to use your music, it will completely ruin the atmosphere. So the music wasn't like terrible or anything. It just was like loud, and it just never took a break. So if you're not going to have any like impact with what you're trying to do with your music. It was like they just were like, I need music, and then just put it on. It wasn't like they were using it to their advantage to make you creeped out or do a big scare or something like that.
Or build suspense or
tension. Exactly.
Tension.
That's what you should use it for a lot of different kinds of movies. And it was just really bad. But John Carpenter, that's my favorite horror music for sure. And people who aren't even big horror buffs recognize and can think of like the Halloween music. So obviously it strikes a chord with people. So I think that had a lot to do with it. I don't know. I just think that some people will say, oh, it's outdated, and there are definitely parts of it that are outdated. Like, the conversation between the girls is very outdated.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a couple things that are kind of like cheesy or whatever, but to me, it's not bothersome. It's just like kind of funny, but the core of it remains. There's a person with a mental health problem who is also evil. And he is going out and he's on a mission to kill people, and he doesn't care how he does it. He just wants to do it. And you never hear him talk. And I think that it's very effective that you never hear him speak. You hear him like in the beginning, and that's it.
Yeah.
So I think that has a lot to do with it too, that it's kind of like this anonymous figure that you're never going to figure out what's going on with him.
Yeah. And I think you're right about the music, because everybody knows like the dun, 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 like everybody
Mm-hmm.
knows that. But my favorite sound that he uses in that whole film is that dun, 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 like when someone
during a kill,
yeah, during a kill. It's like, or even like even the bass notes in the theme where it's like the dun, dun,
mm-hmm.
that just adds so much to that. And I if I remember correctly, I think they showed the film without the score, and people were like, meh, whatever, like it's okay. And they added his score and showed it to like a new group of people, and like people were terrified.
Yeah.
Because it like, and I can't imagine, like now we've got movies like It Follows, where it's like a very synth heavy score.
Mm-hmm.
And but like you said, it was the first time that like synth had really been used like that. And so like I can't imagine going to see that movie when it came out and just being like, what the fuck?
Yeah, all
like,
you know is it's like a scary sound. Yeah.
Yeah. Like what this I was watching a documentary about the making of Rob Zombie's Halloween, and they were shooting in a place that had a piano. One of the production assistants went to the piano and just started going do 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 do, like playing the theme.
Mm-hmm.
And Rob Zombie comes running up. He's like, "Dude, what is that? We should totally use it for the movie." Like, kind of like, because everybody knows it.
Yeah, right.
Let me ask you, like, because the first one is it's like such a classic, and it's still it's so easy to like forgive, because even in that first shot when they're going around the house, like you on the porch, you can see all the like the wires for the lighting. If you look on the porch, you get like there's like definitely errors in the film.
Yeah,
but it's so easy to look past that because it's just such a good movie. I watch it like several times a year. It was September 30th, and I was like, all right, Halloween. I was like a day early. I was like, let's watch it. But what are your thoughts on the franchise, at least up until like the Rob Zombie remakes? Because it just like obviously the second one they established that Laurie Strode and Michael Myers are related, and then there's like so like, were you a fan of? Let's not even talk about Halloween 3, but were you a fan of like, which I know some people love, but
yeah, very divided.
That movie's terrible. It's not good, but like, do you have an affinity for the rest of the franchise, or is it just that like that first one?
First one's obviously the best. I do really like the second one. I liked the element that they were related. It bummed me out that they changed it for Halloween that came out in 2018. I do like that they acknowledged it, though. They didn't just like pretend that was not a thing. 4, I feel like 4 used to be on TV all the time, and I would watch it and I would enjoy it fine. And then 5 and 6 I never really got into. I've seen them, but I don't know, the whole Paul Rudd.
And I really like Paul Rudd.
Oh my God, I love him. But I think that came out right before Clueless came out. And that was I believe that was his very first feature film, was the Halloween that he was in. And
it could have came out yesterday. The dude looks exactly the fucking same.
Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah, it was just over the top. That's not one. Those are 5 and 6 are not ones that I'm exactly rushing out to go watch. But I liked Halloween H2O.
Josh Hartnett.
I thought that was fine. And then
I think that's a good 90s time capsule one, because you've got like Jamie Lee Curtis, you've got Joseph Gordon-Levitt is in it. Josh Hartnett, Michelle. It's like essentially the cast of Dawson's Creek.
You're right. It is it captures a time in history, but I never saw the Rob Zombie ones.
You haven't?
No.
Dude, they're good. But okay, so correction. The first one is good. The second one,
okay, that's what Adrian, who runs All Horror, that's what his reviews say, is that he really loved the first one and he didn't like the second one.
Yeah, the second one I feel like was Rob Zombie being like, the first one I think is Rob Zombie's version of Halloween. And then the second one was like, how can Rob Zombie make Halloween as like a Rob Zombie film? Because it's there's a lot of like tripped out like visions. And
I was gonna say, isn't there like kind of like a dream sequence type element to it?
Well, they follow the trope that they're related.
Oh, okay.
And the Rob Zombie ones, and so because they share a bloodline, the Laurie Strode character starts like seeing her actual mom, who's Sherry Moon Zombie in Rob Zombie's version, and she starts having these visions of like Michael kills like a dog and is like eating his heart, and she's eating pizza at a table, and she can like taste what he's eating. So it like they're like psychically linked or something. I see. Okay. Which they kind of played off a little bit, I think, in like the in 4 with like the little girl. With
Danielle Harris.
She's in the she plays Annie in the Rob Zombie version. So she's all grown up. Okay. And they bring her back to play Annie, and like Brad Dourif's in it from Child's Play, the voice of Chucky, and like a lot of the Devil's Rejects. The first one, I remember seeing the first one in the theater and leaving, and I was like legitimately shook. I was like, I don't know. I think a lot of people were against it, but like the first part of the movie, like you see Michael Myers as a kid, and like what leads up to like him killing his sister, and the kid who plays him is just so creepy. He does such a good job, and like they do a really good job, unlike the first one, where like you have sympathy for him. Like it's, I don't know. If you're gonna watch the first one, I'd ignore the second one. But I think if you're a fan of the original, I think the Rob Zombie version is worth watching just to kind of see, because they stick to the story it's a very loyal version. It's not like trying to be like, I'm going to do something crazy. It's like true to the source material, which was cool. I think we talked about before, but did you like the 2018 version?
Yeah, I liked it. I liked that they paid respects to the original, but I think that it was almost too much. Like, I wish they would have made it a little bit more of their own movie, because a lot of it was just like for the fans, like, hey, remember this scene? Hey, remember this is just like this, and just sitting like, and sometimes it didn't quite make sense to do it that way. But I know that like Danny McBride was like involved in that, and I die for him. I love him. So I'll never say anything bad about him. No.
And David Gordon Green is awesome too. The guy who directed it. I mean, he's just a great director.
But yeah, I thought it was definitely good, and I really liked. I know some people had kind of an issue with like how many like problems like Laurie had as an adult, but I think that's just realistic. Like if someone went through this traumatic experience, they're gonna be messed up. Like there's gonna be problems that they're never going to be able to get over with something like that. So I thought that it was more realistic, that they didn't make her like, oh yeah, she's just living a normal life now. It's like it never happened, you know?
Well, I thought that was a really cool thing about discrediting like the second movie and beyond, because while I think it is like a interesting idea, I think by removing that first story remains a completely random act of, like for some random reason he's after her. And then in the 2018 version, like he gets out, he's like, I'm still after, you don't know why, but you know, like,
see, I liked the idea of them being related, because I liked that he killed his sister, and that's why he got so obsessed with wanting to kill Laurie, because that was like his other sister. Because like he was watching her when she was at school, like he was like stalking her, and then eventually, you know, the other people are kind of like collateral. It just kind of seemed like he was most interested in like getting to her, and he could have just like left and went to another house, but he didn't. So I like that. I know that some people think that was like stupid, and I think that John Carpenter himself doesn't even like that he came up with that, because he was just trying to come up with something to make it different. But
he didn't want to direct it. He was like, let me just write something for you. So
no, he was like one and done, and they were like, no, this was made us a shit ton of money, so you're making another one. But he didn't direct, so he was just on to write with Deborah Hill, and I thought it was fine. I mean, it's a sequel, so, you know, usually the sequel is not going to live up to the original. So I think, it was enjoyable, and it was, you know, for what it was, it's a slasher, and it was fine.
Yeah, I think that's the great thing about that movie, though, is that you can interpret it several different ways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, no, like it could be like is he after her specifically, or, you know, when you find out about the sequel, is it something that, you know, he was driven to do? And I think if you the take that they do in the Halloween, the Rob Zombie version, it's like the way that they set it up, it's pretty apparent that they're related from the beginning. So it's not, it's like they incorporated it into the first one. But I don't know, man. It's one of those movies where it's just every time I watch it, I find something else that I like about it. You know what I mean? Like when he kills Paul, I think it is, he comes out and stabs him up against the door, and then he's just looking at like what he's done. You know what I mean? He's not like, it's a very almost like a curiosity to like, oh, like look what I can do. You know what I mean?
It's like childlike.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he never progressed beyond the day that he killed his sister.
Yeah, it's I don't know, and I think exactly what you said is just like the idea that there is somebody who is just pure evil that could be living next door to you, and you have, no idea until something they snap, and then.
Well, I think that's kind of what made like The Strangers so scary. Is like they're just like, you were home.
Yep. There's not a lot of horror films that get under my skin. The Strangers did. I haven't watched Pray at Night because the first one fucked me up so bad. I haven't had and like you said, the like sequels tend to not always be as good. So I as much as it creeped me out, I think I like have a love for it because it did like get to me so hard. Yeah. But I don't want to like ruin it by watching. Did you see the second one?
No, it's in my queue to watch because I am like social media friends with one of the people with the bag on his head. So, and he was in Haunt actually too. And he is like dressed as a devil. He's one of the antagonists in Haunt. So I do want to watch it just because I know him, but yeah, I totally understand because it's like that movie was so fucked up, and it was like, I totally agree. I'm the same way. I watch that in broad daylight and it creeps me out. I saw that in the theater and somebody was talking and I like told him to stop talking because I was like, are you kidding? Like, you're ruining the vibe right now. Yeah. Like, it was like dead silent in that theater besides this one person. And then as soon as they shut up, then you could like understand like how creepy this movie is. And I don't even know why I'm like getting creeped out thinking about it.
I know. It's just that idea. Movie. It's so random. And my favorite thing about my brother hates horror movies. He does not watch them.
Okay.
And for some reason he decided like that was one. He was like, yeah, I'll watch it. Whatever. Boy. And he called me, he's like, that is the scariest movie I've ever seen. Like, I don't want to go to sleep. It's terrifying. Those are always the ones too that I think like hit really, really hard are the ones where it just seems like it, like you said, like it's just something that like it just like out of nowhere, you know what I mean? And then you could put yourself in those shoes and be like, oh, well, like, would I survive the night? You know what I mean? Like, I think another one that kind of sticks out to me is, did you ever see Vacancy?
Oh my God, you're reading my mind. I was just going to bring that up. I love Vacancy because that is creepy as fuck. That movie is messed up.
It's insane.
I love that movie. And it's like, it's one of those things where I'm like, should I put it on? No, I'm too scared.
But it's just like, oh, we just need to stop somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Just someplace. It's like, it's got almost like the Psycho vibe to it where like, I just happened to pull off to Norman Bates's hotel and I never left. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Except this one, they're videotaping you and making snuff films.
Yeah. I watched a documentary. It's not a horror documentary. I can't remember the name of it. I'll think about it and send it to you. But it's about a guy who had a peephole and he would watch people in his motel.
I've seen it. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. With like Gay Talese, the reporter, and then you're not sure what was true and what wasn't. But yeah, now I saw that documentary like years after I saw Vacancy. And when I saw that documentary, I'm like, oh my God, this reminds me of Vacancy because the guy's just like watching through like a peephole that's like above the like bed in a motel that he owns. And then he's just like, anytime that anybody goes into any of these rooms, they're basically just like, he's just a voyeur. Yeah,
he had the attic where there was like holes going into each room.
Yeah.
So you'd be like, who's in room 17 and just crawl.
And also, like, how creepy are you that not only are you doing this, but you're also showing a reporter?
Yeah.
Like, I see nothing wrong with this.
No, I just like to, I saw the same documentary. For the life of me, I forgot that I saw it until you brought it up. And now I just like, I can't remember the name of it, but I remember watching it and telling Kara about it and being like, this is fucked up.
Yeah.
Just,
I watched it by myself and same thing. I was telling my husband about it. I'm like, dude, this guy is such a creep. He was just watching people. That's just like basically why he owned the motel, was to like go around and see who he could watch.
Yeah. And like nothing ever happened to him, if I remember correctly. Like if I'm trying to remember if like he got into any kind of trouble or.
No,
I know he doesn't own that hotel anymore. I think somebody else.
Right. Yeah. There was some kind of discrepancy because during part of the time he said he was doing this, then he didn't own the hotel. And,
yeah, he had an agreement. That's right. He had the agreement with the guy that he could just come and go.
Yeah. Right. He didn't even own it anymore. Like,
yeah.
What? Yeah. The whole thing was just messed up, but no, I don't think he ever got in trouble and then he died. So
it's crazy. And that did kind of lead me into something I did want to talk to you about too, because I thought of you. I made the mistake of watching American Murder on Netflix. And I don't know, did you watch it or did you see okay,
no,
good.
I didn't watch it.
Well,
I saw the picture.
Well, we had talked about that last time. Yeah. And it's crazy because I remember when that story broke. And it's new, so I don't want to like give the details away. It's fucked up. If you want to go watch it, you can watch it on Netflix. But
you weirdo.
Yeah. Well, I don't know why I'm judging. I watched it. I watched it the day it came out. I was like, let me watch this. But I remembered the story because it was literally like 2016. It like wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, it's not that long ago. Yeah.
And I knew the whole story, and I think that's why I was like, okay, I can watch this because like I knew the story, I knew the details, I knew that the dude was in prison and blah, blah, blah. And I was watching it, and it's all like body cam footage, and then it's like interrogation footage and interview footage, like news interview footage and stuff like that. And it clicked in my head. Oh, when I first read the story and read all the details, I didn't have a child.
Yep.
And I was watching it, and I was literally, I told Kara, woke up in the morning, I said, whatever you do, don't watch this documentary. If you see it, it may look interesting. Don't watch it. I had tears rolling down my face because I was just like, as a parent, I was like, how could you? And I immediately thought about our conversation where it was like stuff involving kids. I was like, I guess I can't handle this anymore. Like,
just what happens sometimes.
Yeah, it's insane. Then the other one I wanted to talk to you about, because I thought about you when I was watching this too. Did you watch The Social Dilemma?
No.
Okay. Watch that movie. If you want, like, it is like a real life. Do you know what it's about?
I just know that it's about social media and everyone says, oh, watch it. But like no one gives any details about it.
It's essentially about how they are, obviously everybody knows like we're being data mined, right? Mm-hmm. Like, Google's got all this information. Facebook has all this information, everything like that. But what it goes into is how you and I could be literally 2 feet apart from each other and have all of the same friends in common on Facebook, and we see completely different news feeds. And how it's like, if let's say you were interested in Pizzagate, like, oh, like I heard the story, like, let me look at, like, let me read an article. You're going to start seeing like more, like, and I think everybody knew like it worked like that to an extent, but when it's the people who designed the algorithms and the platforms, and they're like, yeah, hey, we said something's wrong, we shouldn't do this, nobody listened, and we left. So like they made the monster, and then they're like Frankenstein, they made the monster and then said like, enjoy the village. You know what I mean? Like, don't throw that girl don't hug that girl too tight. But and then they start talking about like kids, like, Millie likes YouTube Kids, my daughter likes YouTube Kids, and so they're like, yeah, they're already collecting data on them, at this age. Or like, if you post a picture of your kid to like your Instagram account, they're like start building profiles for like kids who don't have social media yet, you know what I mean? And that's that made me think of you, because we had that conversation too. And it's like, it was the scariest kind of like real life.
It's kind of like eye-opening, like kind of putting it right in front of you, what's happening. Yeah, like, I don't know. I just kind of assume that everybody knows a lot about me. I don't put a lot of like personal information out there, but I'm sure you could find it. Yeah, we talked about it before. It's why I never put pictures of my son online anywhere, because I know what a cretin Mark Zuckerberg is, and he will just farm it out to the highest bidder. So if I don't trust these things, I use them for, to promote what I'm writing or just for fun to keep in touch with friends and stuff. But I don't need to like go into my like family life on there. And I mean, it really doesn't surprise me that they're building these profiles for these kids. Does not surprise me at all, because all they care about is the money.
Yeah.
How can I make money from this person at some point?
Well, it's crazy too, because the people who developed all the platforms and everything, they're like, yeah, I don't let my kid anywhere near that. Like, my kid doesn't go on YouTube Kids. My kid doesn't, like, they don't have a smartphone. They're like, I know what it's designed to do.
Right.
And it's I think the I think the thing that scared me the most about it is, like, I watched that whole movie and then I was like, let's see what's going on Facebook. Cause it's like, we just like we know, we all know, and we don't give a fuck. And it's,
it's true. It's just kind of like it was like big news about the NSA. And I'm like, dude, did you really think that they didn't know? Like, did you really ever expect privacy when you have the world at your fingertips? You think nobody was like getting anything from that? I'll have a conversation with somebody, and then an hour later I get something popping up in my Google news feed for it. It's like, I know that they can hear what we're saying, like, whatever.
Yeah. And it's like I remember there was a story about like people, Snapchat is supposed to be, you send the picture and then it disappears but it's
which again, how could you ever think that's just going to be gone forever?
Yeah, there's
like,
people at the NSA
for
that
like
are like
high school kids, like that's, you can't expect them to understand like the complexities of these social media sites and like what their ultimate goal is, and that nothing you put out is ever going to be private. I think a lot of people that are like in the younger age group and a lot of people in the like 55 and older age group, they think, oh, my Facebook is private. No problem. I should be able to post whatever. Well, nothing's ever really private.
Yeah. I saw something online this with that age group. It's like, your parents, when AOL came out, don't trust anyone on the internet. Your parents in 2020, Hillary Clinton's a lizard person. I read it on the internet.
Basically what happened. No, I know older people in my family will say something, oh, they say blah, blah, blah. And it's like, who's they?
Tom Hanks is drinking baby blood.
Was it a meme? Did it have a picture with it?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There was a lady where I won't say her name, but she posted a story, and it was like witness in like Bill Clinton witness in Colorado found murdered. And I was like, what? So I clicked the link and I read it, and it's like, in South Park, Colorado, Stan Marsh was found decapitated. Eric Cartman, a neighbor, had this to say, and she had either had no idea that it was, South Park and that it was like a joke article, or she didn't read the article at all and was just
right. Like, yeah, that's a lot of people do that. They see a headline and they share it.
Yeah, somebody
which
shared it.
I'm sure that was the intention of that, but yeah, it's crazy that nobody vets their information. Like, they just hear it from a source that it's saying something that is in line with what they want to be true. Mm-hmm. And so that makes it true. Like, if I see something real crazy about like something going on in the administration, if I see like an article, I'm like, is this true? And then I'll go like look into it. I'm never like reshare. Like I need to go like check multiple sources to like see that this actually really happened. And it usually did, because it's been a shit show.
Yeah.
But I never just, I'm like, oh man, this look what happened, guys, look what happened. Like, I go make sure, because I know that there's just a bunch of garbage out there, and people, especially now with the way that journalism is, everything is about getting people to click on the link. So it's not how headlines used to be, where it would give a synopsis of what the article is about. Now it's like, how can I word this so that people will share this?
Oh yeah.
So a lot of misleading headlines.
Did you, like, there was one, it had been out for like probably 2 years and people are still posting it, but it's Bill Nye's home was raided and they found like 3 pounds of crystal methamphetamine in the basement and a stripper pole.
Yeah,
and it's
very
like
believable.
Yeah, yes. It's like, no, just, look at us at Snopes or whatever. You know what I mean?
Literally any site.
Right.
If you just Google those keywords, you'll get a ton of articles saying that was false information.
Yeah, I've gotten to the point where I don't argue with people on like social media anymore, because I would, like, especially during like the first wave when people didn't know anything and like tensions were really high. I would find myself like straight up having online arguments with people I've never met and I'm never going to meet.
Yep.
And so now I'm just like, here's a link to the truth, and if you want to read it, read it. And that's like the extent of what I because there's just some stuff that I see where I'm like, I can't, like, just nobody is telling this person that this isn't true. Like,
no, I know. Yeah. Everyone's just like, oh man.
Yeah. Then I feed into it though. That's what me and my wife are talking about. Like, you realize by doing that, like, now when you open your news feed, it's just going to be like, here's something to keep you like enraged, or here's someone that doesn't agree with you. Go ahead. Like, they do a really good analogy of, in the movie, it's, they do a documentary, but they cut in footage of this family that they shot. And one of the kid is actually the kid from The Righteous Gemstone. Speaking of Danny McBride. He's
okay.
Like the son who returns.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's in a ton of stuff now.
He's in Rob Zombie's Halloween. He plays Tommy Doyle.
You know what? I knew that. Yes.
Yeah, as a little kid. But they have like his body up there, and it's like 3 scientists that are basically like, okay, he's not responding to this, send him that, or let's put this ad in front of him. Like, I don't know. It was just, it was really, really creepy to kind of be like, oh, so like, yeah, again, like, we know, to some extent, but now it's like, here's the people that made it that are like, you're 100% right. Like, it's all emotional manipulation. And
yeah, my husband saw a documentary. I can't remember the name of it, but he said it was really just like sad. It was like a woman whose father was like watching Fox News, and it was basically just like completely manipulating his brain, and it was going into like how they'll use different colors to elicit some kind of response to like make you angry or make you agitated or anxious when they're giving you this information. And then they will, obviously we've all seen the headlines that they use that are just completely outrageous. But yeah, I never saw it because I'm like, I don't know if I'm like at a point where I don't really want to watch something that's just gonna like upset me. Like, I'm not gonna have any like entertainment value from it. I don't want to be upset. Like, if I know like generally that something is true, I don't need to like go into the why if it's gonna just make me angry. Maybe someday, but not right now. So
right.
Yeah, but it's crazy. It's all just, which everybody does that. Like, it's not just Fox News, but they do it to a different extent where like their motivations are a little bit more sinister. So, yeah, it's pretty crazy. We're all just being manipulated.
It's the Wes Craven approach, because that's what he did with Freddy's sweater. Is he was like, what he looked up what 2 colors are like the harshest on the eye when they're next to each other, and it was like that red and that green in a sweater. He's like, perfect. Put that, you know what I mean? It's just designed to like make, I don't know. It's
you're uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah. It's I don't know, man. Like, I think especially this year, I think I'm so thankful for this type, for, Halloween and this time of year, just because it's like, I feel like it's like controlled scares.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, it's like the world is so fucking out of control right now. And like, you don't know what's going to happen, where this is like, I can sit down, I can watch this movie, and like, I can like if it's something that you've seen before, it's familiar. If it's something like you're being scared in like a healthy way, and it's a little bit of like, I don't know. I feel
like a return to normalcy. Like this is something you do 100%. This is something you do every October. Like it's back to normal, and this is like fun, and it's a scare that's lighthearted. It's not something super serious. So, I mean, I think that people are even embracing Halloween that maybe usually don't this year, because I have been noticing a lot more Halloween decorations this year. Mm-hmm. My son is obsessed with Halloween, like way more than I am. And we have to go through our neighborhood every single day and look at every single house's Halloween decorations. And there's a lot. And it's not normally like that. Like I'm usually like one of the only people on my block that decorates. So it's nice because I think it's giving some people something to think about that's not going to bring you down, and it's going to like bring joy to other people. Like I was just talking to my mom and my grandma about this the other day. Like Halloween is really a selfless holiday. You're giving out candy, you're like spending your money to give candy to kids to just have them enjoy the night. You're putting out Halloween decorations, not just for you, but for like everybody to see, and it either brings like a little bit of a scare where you're like, oh, that's crazy. Or it's like cute Halloween decorations that make you feel nice. And it's like, oh, I like fall. And it's nice that there's a lot of people who are, sharing in that. And especially for kids right now, it's so difficult for them. Like, it's nice that they're having this.
Are you expecting a lot of trick-or-treaters this year?
I usually get a good amount of trick-or-treaters unless it rains or something. I am doing goodie bags this year, so I'm setting up a table and just putting bags out. And then I'll be trick-or-treating with my son. I got him like a little face mask that goes with this costume, and so he's super pumped about it. But
is he still gonna be Darkwing Duck, or did we?
Yeah, he's gonna be Darkwing Duck.
Let's get dangerous.
Yep, I got him a Darkwing Duck face mask.
That's awesome.
I found it, thankfully. So yeah,
you're better than me. I was just gonna open the door and be like, "Here," just start throwing it.
I reenacted my Facebook. I had been off of it for a while. I just reenacted it because I wanted to go into my group that I belong to, that's in my neighborhood, and just say like, "Hey, just so you know, there's going to be at least one place you can trick or treat at this year. It's going to be on a table. So like, no interaction. So I just want to let you know, like I live at this corner, please come by, just take one bag and whatever." And then a lot of other people were saying they're going to do the same thing. So I think hopefully I inspired some people to be like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Cause I'm sure some people are scared. They don't want the interaction with a bunch of different people. Totally understandable. And it's a nice way to still be able to give out candy if you're going out with a trick-or-treater, because my husband and I both go with him. Mm-hmm. So, the way we did it was like one of our parents would take us and then the other parent would stay home and pass out candy. But now we can just set out, maybe I'll do this every year. I don't know. I bought like a bunch of different little things. I'm just going to make into a little goodie bag and hopefully they like it. I think, maybe this is what's going to like eventually save Halloween, because with all the trunk or treat and stuff that goes on now, I think a lot of people don't even bring their kids trick or treating anymore. And I was reading this thing that like only 20% normally let their kid trick or treat. I'm like, what? Like 20%? Like, are you joking?
And they're done before like the sun goes
Halloween
down.
Growing up. It's just crazy. So yeah, the trunk or treat, I don't get how that's safer, because you still don't know the people that you're getting the candy from, and you're just going to like the trunk of their car. So I don't understand how that's better.
Right. It's literally just like, oh, you've got little legs, and then just flip them into the trunk.
Yeah. Like it's not like, I mean, I know that like the parents are like normally with them and stuff, but like, I don't know. It's just, it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't like trunk or treat. Let me just put it out right now. I am against trunk or treat.
But I think some of that kind of comes down to like, when you and I were kids, like my mom would just be like, yeah, go ahead. Like I remember I would have 2 costumes. And so I would do the block, in one costume, and then I would go home and change, and I would go back and do it again.
I get 1 or 2 of those people that come to my house. I get a couple tricksters, but I appreciate the effort, and I still go.
Yeah. And I mean, if it's a good enough costume, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, but like, I remember, and I mean, maybe I wasn't actually out that late, but I was just young and it felt like it. But like, I don't remember being done by like 7 o'clock. Like,
no,
it was like, you go until you're like,
you
my
go
feet hurt.
until you can't go anymore. Yeah, I completely agree. I think now at least in Michigan, the official like trick or treat hours, which I didn't even know that was a thing until last year, are 6 to 8. And I'm like, 2 hours? Like, no, you got to give like 4 hours. Like, we were out late for sure. There's no way I was done before 8 o'clock. No way.
Can I tell you the other thing that pisses me off about parents on Halloween right now? I would never do this. I hate, literally loathe, like, and if you're listening to this and you're one of those parents, change your behavior. But the parents who follow their kids in their car, or the parents who the kids get in the car, run up to the door, get the candy, then they go to the next house, stop.
Yeah, what even is that?
Like, for me, that's like the definition of bad parenting. Like get out there with your kids, walk the street with them, like experience it with them.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
Like, and like, I think
talk about phoning it in.
Right. And it's also like your teacher, like Halloween was the day that you look forward to because you're like, I'm going to dress up and I know I'm going to get candy and I'm going to work for it. I'm going to go the longer I walk, the more houses I go to, the more I'm going to get, where you're taking like the work and like the effort out of it. And it's just like, I put on a costume and people give me free stuff. There's no like, I don't know. And I hate it because I sound like a old man, like purist. I'm like, back in my day, kids walked and there was blisters on their feet. But,
no, I'm totally the same way. If you have to like go a few houses, like, oh well, like we used to, I'm sure you did the same thing. Obviously you would like change your outfit, but we would trick or treat for a while until we couldn't like hold our like pillowcase anymore, go dump it and then go back out.
Yeah.
So there was a ton of walking, and like, number one, everybody can use the exercise. Number two, it's an experience. Like, that is not the same trick-or-treating because you're like looking for the house and seeing who's giving it out. And, I know that.
Or which houses to avoid. Like the lady in my neighborhood.
That person gives out gross candy or whatever.
We had a lady who give out pennies and pencils.
Oh, God.
She would give you like 15 cents in pennies and a pencil. And I'm like, thank you for sticking this pile of metal that 1 million people have touched into a bag of things I'm going to eat. I appreciate that so much. Oh,
I'm totally the same way. Get out there with your kids and have fun.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. I feel like it takes out like the hunting for the houses that had the lights on. You know what I mean? Because if there was the dark house, like, don't bother. You know what I mean? But like, I don't know. I feel like it's and maybe it's just like different parenting now. Like I don't ever remember my mom or my dad ever being like the helicopter parents. It was like, I'm going to the creek for 6 hours. I'll be back in a little while. And they're like, okay.
I have the opposite. I have very overprotective parents.
Did you?
Yeah.
But it sounds like they did those like the trick or treating and stuff like that. Like they were like, go do it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I feel like I don't even know that it's helicopter parenting that they're doing. It's just kind of like, this is just going to make it easier and faster to like get it over with or something. I don't know, but I
don't get it. Like, I for some reason I always remember Halloween being rainy and wet. I don't ever, like, I can't tell you a Halloween that I remember that I was like, oh, the weather was beautiful. It's always like,
yeah, cold, you're right about that.
Or like, it's like half raining, half snowing. And you're like,
yeah, there was a couple that were super, super cold. I remember. And my mom would make me wear a winter coat under my costume. And it was so annoying because it's like, this is not what this is supposed to look like. Yeah. But it's Michigan. It gets pretty cold.
Oh yeah. Well, I remember one year, my family, like, we had enough to get by, but we just weren't, you know what I mean? Like, let's just say this, we lived closer to Livonia back in the day, or like closer to Westland than we did to, we were on that other side of town. But I wanted to be a zombie. So my mom took Jell-O and mixed it with water, just to make it a paste, and then put it all over my face. And then it hardens and it makes like a green, just like a goop that's hard in your face. Well, then it started raining. And so it would get wet and then it would start to run, and then it got really cold. So then it was frozen. So trying to get it off, it was like chiseling. And then my face was green from the Jell-O for like 3 days.
I know. I was a devil when I was like 5 or something, and I had a red face, and that paint took quite a while to come off.
Oh yeah. It's I don't know. I just it's such a, if you do it right, and I really hope, again, we have young kids, so they're not there yet. Like this year, we're going to a family member's house. They live in a pretty nice neighborhood, and everybody there really goes all out with the decorations.
Okay.
So since she's not really old enough to walk up to people's doors and trick or treat or anything like that, like we're just going to take her, put her in the stroller, and then walk around and look at all the decorations. Mm-hmm. But here I'm just going to leave a big bowl and be like, please don't take all of it.
My friend leaves a note that says first kid that comes up here gets the whole thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he puts the whole bowl.
Yeah. I was thinking if we come back and there's still like people out, I think I was just going to do like a pulley system, like put a bowl on a rope. And then when people come up to the door, just drop it and be like, take what you want, then pull it back up. But I just I really look forward to, when she's like 6, 7, 8, like being like, all right, like, okay, this is the game plan. We're going to hit this block first, and then we're going to come back. We're going to dump it out. We'll get some, get some chili in you or something like that. We'll get you warm. Then we'll go out, do it again. And I always like the dads who, like the parents who had the wagon, you know what I mean? They'd be like, all right, your feet hurt, get in. Like we'll do a quick rest.
Yeah, we're in it for the long haul.
So, I know it's getting kind of late where you are, and I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I did want to ask you, I know the last time you were on the show, you were talking about working on your novel.
Yes.
And I did want to check in with you and kind of see, like, how is that going? Are you on track? Do we have something to look, if there, is any kind of breaking story, anything we would look forward to?
No breaking news, but I'm almost done.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's about 70,000 words right now.
And I don't think I know 70,000 words.
Well, I've been working on it. I remember this was I started having like a nugget of an idea when my son was a baby, and I've been working on it for, I think, a little over 2 years now. And I took a couple breaks. Like I probably would be done with it had I not taken these breaks, but I just had to. Like I took a break last year when my dog died. I took like a 3-month break because I just was like, I was like grieving, honestly.
Yeah.
And I just was not in the right headspace to write a book. And then I got back on track eventually. And then I was doing well with it. I had like a weekly setup with a babysitter. And, once a week I would leave and go to a coffee shop for like 4 hours and just work on that. And then COVID arrived and I couldn't do that. And then I also was just like way too anxious and, again, not in the right headspace. Like writing is not something for me that I can just do no matter what. Like if I don't feel like writing, if I push myself to write, I usually can get like something out of myself, but I write a lot better when I'm like in the mood to write. And there are days that you have to like make it like, okay, I'm writing from this time to this time, and it keeps you on a schedule. But there was like at least 2 months off during quarantine. I don't think I wrote more than a couple pages during like while we were quarantined. And there were all these people who were like, this is the perfect time to like write a book and get your stuff done. And I'm like, fuck off.
I want to rip my face off. I'm so stressed.
Yeah. Like, are you kidding? Like, first of all, I had no extra time because I was home with my son. So the amount of time did not increase for me. And then on top of it, I have this extra stress and anxiety where you're like, obsessively looking into things, or people are texting you and you can't see people and you're just like every kind of stress that you can think of. And then people are like, this is the perfect time. It's like, okay, I guess maybe for people who like weren't working during that time and they normally don't have the time to start a project like that. Like,
or don't have kids. Or
like I could see that as being a like somewhat positive thing for people who could utilize like extra time rather than just like sitting home and watching TV all day. But I mean, it had to be super stressful for people who couldn't work during that time though. Like, it's just, I don't know. I just felt like it was very dismissive to also the craft of like people who are artists or writers or any kind of like, you have some kind of a creative job. It's not that easy. Like, okay, you have more time, so just do it. Like, things come to you kind of when they come to you. So for me, it was really hard to get back into it, but I am back into it. I've been having my brother edit because he's extremely smart. It's like working with an editor. So, he will say like, this could use this, or, he'll have questions like, what's your goal for this chapter and things like that. So that's been really helpful for me that I've had his assistance, because, you're writing something and the story in your head, these characters in your head. So you need to make sure that that's like coming off on the page. So it's always a good thing to have other people like read what you're writing and make sure that they're getting somewhat of the same idea as what you're trying to say. So yeah, I had like a mental deadline for myself to be done with it by the time like Halloween came around, but I'm not quite done. I still have to finish the ending. There's like a couple things, like pages here and there that I'll have to write, but I think I've got like a couple thousand more words to go, and then I'll be ready to put together my package to try and find an agent. So
that's awesome.
Yes, I'm very excited. I like it. I like reading it. So I hope that other people will too. So.
Well, I'm super excited, and when it comes out, I definitely want you to come on and talk all about it. And I'm with you. Like, there's a big thing for me was, and maybe this just speaks to like me being a defective human being, but there was everyone was like, excuse me, now's a great time to. You don't have to gain the COVID-15. Like, cook for yourself. Like, here's ways you could be healthy at home. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm ordering pizza and like I'm the kind of person that like I eat to cope with things. I'm like,
no, I am the same way.
There's so many nights where like, my wife and I may have gotten into an argument. She goes to bed and I get on Grubhub. And
no.
And then I eat it and then I feel terrible and I drop it at the bottom of the outside garbage can. And then in the morning immediately I'm like, so last night after you went to bed, I got, because I just have guilt and shame like all about it. But people are like, yeah, like you have a kale salad, set yourself a daily. I was like, fuck off. Like, I'm like
in a perfect world. Yes, I would do that.
Well, and especially like from an artistic point, it's like, like inspiration comes from places and being around things and people. And, like there's not always a lot of inspiration to be drawn if you're just like, well, I'm just in my living room. Like, I really hope something comes to me. So I don't know. I'm excited. I'm super impressed that like, even through all of it, you were able to like continue plugging away at it, even with those challenges. And I think it'll be awesome. I want to ask you more questions about it, but I don't want to like, I want to save the suspense. Well, I just wanted to say, like, as I know there in Michigan, it's coming up on 11:30. So, I will let you get out of here, but I did just want to say thank you for coming on. Like I said, I've been looking forward to this all month. I told you this is my favorite time of year. And when it was time to kind of talk about it and stuff like that, I was like, Jessica is the one that I want to come on and hang out and talk about the movies. And so just thank you so much for doing it. And again, guys, her book is still on Amazon, The Realist Bride. You can buy it. It's not hard. There'll be a link. If you're watching on YouTube, look down there. If you're listening, click the show details. It'll be there. Buy the book. Check out her website, writerjessicagomez.com. And again, just thank you so much for being here. Can you stick around for a minute after we wrap up?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. All right, guys, that's episode 36. Holy shit. All right, we will we'll see you next week for episode 37. Again, Jessica, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.